What's up, Vaultheads? Back in the deep dive footage again today. In this video we're going to be looking at the gameplay portion of the event. Vex and Raf do a short walkthrough, just a little segment, little slice of the game. So we're just getting a bit better idea of what it's going to feel like to actually play Borderlands 4. We're going to go back over that footage and talk about a few things that are said and see how Borderlands 4 is shaping up. So this is the lobby for Borderlands 4. This is where you're going to be checking out all your settings and you're going to be meeting up with your friends. They've announced full crossplay at launch, so that is fantastic. So you'll be able to meet up with your friends on PlayStation, Xbox, PC and Switch. Hopefully that isn't marred by the same problems that Borderlands 3 was, because that had, for months after launch, massive problems just meeting up with people on the same system in the same town as you. Hopefully Borderlands 4 doesn't have those problems, and we're just going to have a fun time. It is also worth noting that they have an icon that shows up in the top right, and this shows up in the game as well, showing which system your friend is on. That is an absolute waste of space and completely pointless for a PvE game like this. That is only really going to be relevant in a game where maybe it's a competitive game and you're trying to understand how the person you're playing with may act in certain situations, because controller players and mouse and keyboard players will often, have different limitations or different ways that they may approach something. So that's going to be a good indicator for you to understand how to communicate with a person in that kind of sense. But in a PvE game like this, that is completely pointless. That is just going to be an extra asset on the screen that we don't need, muddying things up, and there's lots of problems with that as it stands right now. But we'll see more of that as we go. So let's get going. So here we get told that this is Terminus Range, so the more snowy area in the game is one of 4 zones, which is, I think we've covered before. So that's Terminus Range. We don't have the names for the others, but we know that one is the more sort of green area, one is the more sandy, arid area. And then the 4th zone, it may be that they're counting those as the city areas. That may be that they're sort of counting that as one of the location types. Or it may be that it's a completely different zone we haven't seen, or my suspicion is still that this is probably an underground area, which we have seen a couple of clips of, and I think that there's going to be quite a lot of underground stuff going on in Borderlands 4. This bridge just here, we saw Raf drive across that on the Switch 2 announcement trailer. So this is now into the actual gameplay. And this is in Terminus Range, and you can see this orange beam of light in the background here. That is the front of one of the Timekeeper's towers, which I like to point out. There's a short on my channel where you can see clips of every single time we've seen a Timekeeper tower in the footage for the game so far, because GEARBOX love sneaking those into little corners of screens and stuff, or just through the haze like we are here. But let's get into giving this a bit of a look. So it is looking good. I do like the game. The lighting and the crossover between the sort of more cel-shaded style or comic booky style, they have pulled back more and more, but I am glad they do still retain that with the game. If anything, I feel like they should have leaned more into that over time rather than backing off from it. Again, that adds a lot of technical challenges to the game's development. Which can be problematic. This is playing, it's worth mentioning as well, this is playing on the PS5 Pro, so that is technically, I guess, the most powerful console out there right now. And you can see, even from that very short distance he's travelled there, you saw a lot of pop-in on the rock surfaces and such, and there's a lot of that. So you can see that this is a very demanding game, for sure. How they're going to be running it on the Switch too, who knows. So these are a new kind of wildlife, Cratch. I'm very sad that these aren't called Bratch or Batch. In Borderlands 3 you had the Ratch, which was a combination of the name of a rat and a roach. So you had Ratch, and then I kind of feel like, these guys look like bats. Surely these should be Bratch, or a combination between a bat and a roach. So you've got Batch. I don't know. I presume there must be that kind of mindset with what they've done with Cratch, but it just feels like it should be Bratch. Before we go any further, I'm just going to highlight just briefly the elephant in the room. The UI in this game is absolutely awful. It may be the worst UI I've ever seen. It looks like it was made on Microsoft Word. There's just way too much going on, and it's obviously been made by someone who does not have the right amount of experience to be doing the job. We've got here this really messy compass now. People make a fuss that the minimap is gone. I'm not too bothered about that, but if we've got a compass in this game, then it needs to actually be like clean and clear. Having all these cardinal points, you don't need all of that. You only need north and south. Then all these other icons you've got here, which are quite complex and all overlaying each other, it's just way too much on the screen. You don't need that. And then you've got this big kind of haze tied into it as well, which presumably is there to add to sort of visibility on those icons in certain scenarios. Keep the icons simple and you won't need to do that, but that's just additional mud that you don't need on the screen. The mission log bit here is not too bad, but you probably could minimize it. I'm sure there'll be some adjustment, at least for people on PC, to be able to adjust these UI assets to an extent, but you'd still want to show off your best version of things, and this, you know, obviously gets some critique because of that. Down here, all of these assets down here, you have all this extra shadow muddying up the screen. You don't need that. That is just problematic. It's just closing down your visibility. You want things as clear as possible, still while having very simple icons, or, you know, whatever it needs to be to indicate to someone what is going on, but you don't need all this extra fluff. Like the icon of Wrath there is probably too complex. You definitely don't need the PlayStation icon that I've already commented on. The health bars is enough. You can probably, at this point, we could be dropping a shield and a kind of first aid icon. We know that blue is shield, we know that red is health. You could be dropping those out by this point. Having the character's level as big as it is, that is way too big. I don't know why you would have that asset in that kind of way. Having the kind of type of character, or the class modification you currently have with the Potent Alchemist, like, look at it in your menu. You don't need that on your screen. It's just stuff you don't need, especially when you've got like icons for abilities or buffs and debuffs that will be popping up as well. And as the game gets more chaotic, the more challenges you get to, you need to just have things nice and simple. And it's shocking to see in 2025 this is still the kind of work that people are putting out on a AAA game. Again, just assault rifle mode, like just a simple icon, just so you're toggling between icons, would be absolutely fine. And then we now have this addition of showing you which weapon you have on which direction on your D-pad. Remember, why do you need that on your screen? We've never had to have that in a Borderlands game before, from my memory. Just, you know, you equip your guns and then you remember where they are. Why would you need to have that? That's just way too much. They've got almost, between all of this, there's like 50% of the space they've taken up that could be completely cleared out. There's 50% of space they could save and be conveying information to the player better than they are now. That's my opinion on things, and there's probably a few more things on the UI we're going to point out as we go, because it definitely becomes more intrusive once the player is actually starting to play rather than just exploring like we are now. But here we're just coming up to a silo, which is sort of like the, I guess they're like the pylons in Far Cry, something like that. So we find these in a zone, and then these are going to give us some more objectives, or, you know, guide us to the sorts of things that are available around here. And this is Echo 4. Echo 4 is our new kind of companion that's going to be doing hacking for us and helping us to sort of just be guided around the world. Again, you've got a massive compass there with a ton of icons. You're going to have characters that are going to maybe be like dragging you around with stuff. You've now got this guy that's going to be also like adding like waypoints and stuff. It's just way too much. It's crazy amounts of hand-holding in a game that I thought was meant to be more like Elden Ring or something like that, where we're going to have the ability to just sort of freely explore. Like, that's the kind of experience that I'm looking for in a game. And it's fine to have, you know, some of this stuff, but this just seems crazy. Like, this game's presumably going to be an 18, like most Borderlands games are. Why do they design it like it's my first video game or something? Like, everything's meant to be for like a 5-year-old. Ugh. Come on. So that's the silo coming out. So this is your map. It's a very, very detailed map. We've not had maps that have had this much information before in a Borderlands game, so that's something new. That's kind of cool. I like the whole, you know, open the map up and it's going to kind of clear things off, and as you open the map you would find some icons, and sure, like if you want to then go to that point and you tell the game, yes, that's my objective, and that then gets brought up on a compass to help guide you around so you can jump in your digirunner and move around a bit faster, that makes total sense. But if you just got all these icons just spreading over the compass, just too much. So they have confirmed that there are various vaults in the game, and here it says we're going and looking for a fragment to be able to find a vault. So I guess the standard formula is going to be there. It looks like you have like 3 kind of lines around the outside of this icon. So I guess maybe that's going to be, you know, you go and do 3 different things to find the pieces for a vault, and then you can go in and do the vault, which they've described as a dungeon. I believe that's kind of how they're labeling it now, which is kind of the way that it always should have been. The vaults should have been kind of what they labeled as raids in Borderlands 2, where you'll have a challenge to go through, and that's kind of what they were like in Borderlands 1 and 2. Really, you just sort of went through a story section that was a bit more intense before getting to the actual vault and the vault monster. So the silo, you're able to zip up there as well, and a little bit more of the movement. We're going back to the glide. I've commented before, I'm not a fan on the glide, particularly being as prominent as it is. If it was faster, if the glide was more like the sprint, so you're actually using it to sort of zip around, I think I'd be more interested in it, but this looks a bit slow. Then we've got the ship that just popped in, and these are a spawning mechanic that we've talked about in lots of videos so far, about how those are just a spawning in mechanic. They'll just appear in the world and just send bots down or whatever. Again, I'm just going to keep pointing this out. We've got RAF in front of us, the PlayStation icon. The PlayStation icon, which is not only the PlayStation icon, it is a shaded PlayStation icon. It then has a black circle around it. It then has a blue circle around it. It is grabs more attention than the name of the character. Like, it doesn't need to be there. Like, that is just, I sort of hope that you can see kind of what I'm getting at now, but I mean, it's even blocking part of taking attention away from seeing RAF as vehicle. So, like, it just needs the player's name, and I'd be honest, I think the text can probably be half the size that it is there as well. It's just ugly. And as we've got our first enemy health bar that's popped up there, and you can see how far Vex has now turned off of that enemy, and it's still got it, but you've got the health bar, you've got the number of the enemy, you've got shadowing behind the health bar, you've got these additional brackets, and then you've got the name of the enemy. Like, I mean, if you look at this asset, which we're not even near anymore, so why the bar is still showing up, the actual bar is probably about the same size as the enemy itself. Like, that's just crazy. And that gets a lot worse when we get up the hill. Lots and lots you'll be seeing here as well as we go through, keeping in mind this is the PlayStation 5 Pro, so this is the most powerful console on the market right now, and the performance of this is terrible. This is running at 30 frames a second. Whether that's what they're aiming for when this releases, I don't know, but the fact they did a presentation in 2025 at 30 frames a second is terrifying, and the amount of assets pop in, like downgrading of textures and all sorts, like as we're moving around in this world, is not reassuring at all. And a lot of the popping you can see is just lots and lots of different little assets as well. It's like stuff that shouldn't really be necessarily putting a ton of load on. Right, next enemy. So now you've got the shield bar, health bar. You've got, I guess this is meant to be indicating what his weapon is, because he's incendiary. Why do we need it to say incendiary and show a flame icon and show the level and the brackets and all the shadowing behind? The text is bigger than the health bars. Like, that's absolutely crazy. Look at the size of this enemy and look at the size of all of this. This is like 4 or 5 times the size of the actual person we're going to be looking at to engage with. I mean, we might as well be shooting health bars rather than shooting the people. It's just insane. I'm just going to let it play a little bit. So we've got this spawning device on the side here. Again, look how much text there is. Cryogenic badass eradication armature. And I know we've had a lot of this before, and I don't know exactly what it is that's different, but this stuff stands out. This just grabs the attention. You know, I've not felt the UI in this kind of way in a Borderlands game be this intrusive before, and the elements of Borderlands like UI are already over the top, and that's kind of what I was expecting, is for things to be pulled into the current day and to be minimized more and to be made more clean and sit in the screen better and sit in the actual scene better. But they're really jarring. You're really conscious about all of these overlay components all the time. It's going to give people headaches, because there's so much going on in the Borderlands game anyway, with effects and everything else. When you're sort of trying to stare through like a screen door, that just really is going to negatively impact the performance in a lot of ways for a lot of players. Then we had another little bit there where it was then saying leaking, so I guess that's actually saying about an effect that we have applied to him, perhaps. So again, more text, and then all of these little extra details, like you've got the bracket, you've got these other little things off. This is so insane. And then the texture, like I guess that's like a binary kind of code thing they've got in there. The yellow obviously is yellow with the brown. There's so many assets there. There's so much with that, and it needs to just be simple and clean to give information just fast, so that you can just quickly look and kind of be like, oh, it's a cryogenic enemy. He's roughly my level. I mean, I thought the game was meant to scale to everyone's levels anyway, so why it's making a big deal about the numbers, like, you don't need that. Like, anything that's within a realistic level for you to fight just needs to just be no number. And if for some reason there was something that maybe was a big jump in numbers, then you just kind of have like a red bar on it or something, so that it's really warning you that there's a step in skill that's going to be required. But yeah, all of that is just, I don't know what. Are the interns doing this stuff? I don't get it. So then you've got this other bar down the bottom here as well. Oh, that's ours. Sorry, that's our glide, I think, refreshing. Which, I mean, I guess that's way too central. Like, it needs to just be. The bottom middle was a lot nicer and cleaner for a lot of this information in Borderlands 2 and 3. Like the reload icons and everything, like the XP, like everything is way too much. Way too much. Damage numbers, not too bad. The bulkhead using a few abilities there. I mean, all of the movement feels very slow. Which is not helped at all by the fact that it's on controller, but that's, you know, like I was saying, I feel concerned that controller's not going to be dealt with again properly, and the fact that you've got someone here that doesn't look like they're comfortable using a controller, then, you know, it's again not displaying the game in a very good light, because you're just getting a bad impression of it. They should have someone who knows how to use a controller, and actually will move around in a way that, you know, it will look and feel exciting for this kind of demonstration. Just to highlight here as well, because we do see it, but you can't see it that well there, but you'll see it a little bit as the camera sort of moves. But this is the big mountain cord out structure that we've seen a lot, that fires the big purple beams out of it. The second most seen structure that we've seen about Borderlands 4. Just in the background there, just that landmark. Like, that should be, you know, that's giving us our north. It doesn't matter where north and south are, really. When you're in an area, if you have a landmark, then that's your way of orientating yourself to be able to move around and do other things. And I think they've done a good job of that. I think that, you know, the landmarks with the Timekeeper's Towers and the other sort of large structures we're getting to see I think will be enough for many of us. Quite a lot of different things here going on with the guns and the movement, which looks like good fun. Just as mentioned, it just feels like it would have been beneficial to have someone maybe that's a little bit better in control of what they're doing. So then this is one of these big waypoints, and I hope that this doesn't apply to everything, because if it does, then that really takes away the fun of exploration. They're talking here about how we're now going to meet up with Amara, and how the Vault Hunters have spread out across the galaxies, trying to track down Lilith in the hope that she's still alive. Which, you know, is setting off a lot of buzzes story-wise. Queen Calypsis, maybe? Maybe not. I like Amara's new look here. This is a fun update in the traditional Borderlands way, and she's got this fun kind of sort of side story thing going on with her at the moment, where she's pet sitting for some reason. We've got this fun little creature. I mean, I really hope that there's some function for any of the Vault Hunters to get pets in this game, although we've seen Vex with her ability to call up her specters. I'm really hoping that, you know, I was always assuming that the kind of robot companions or wildlife companions or whatever would just be something that would just be able to be picked up by any class as a bit of a modifier, but we haven't seen too much on that yet. I think it looks really funny, this scene, and a lot of the footage as we're going through, and I think a big part of that is I think that they have pulled back a number of things that should be happening in the scene. So I think, like, there's a lot of lighting that isn't running on this, that they've turned off for this presentation. They've obviously had to pull things back, run it down to 30 frames a second just to try and get a smooth presentation, which is concerning, but I think that's why this all looks a little kind of flat and a little bit awkward. So here they've just said about how you're now able to set the game to your own difficulty level, so it will scale to you independently even if you're playing with someone else. Not sure how that's going to work, because I mean, I guess it's going to affect like drops, but like, you know, your buddy could just turn it on super easy and kill the boss for you, and then you're going to get good loot. I'm not sure how that's going to work. This is Tim. So this is a creation. This guy we're trying to track down, Lecter, has been messing with the wildlife and been creating some interesting creatures. And this is Tim, who comes out shouting, which, you know, that's promising. It feels like a lot of the fun is being sucked out and pulled back with Borderlands 4. So far, to actually see something like that finally makes it feel like, you know, maybe some of the core kind of mindset and character is still going to be there. Look at Rafa's icon just running around back there. We've got our abilities down the bottom there as well, which I don't like these icons, but once we get into looking at the menus a bit more, I will make some criticisms. I don't know if this music has been added additionally for showcasing this event, but the music at this section is very lively and orchestral. You know, it's fun. I don't think I have a problem with it per se, but it does seem maybe a little bit over the top for what we're doing. So here we get into the menus finally, and I'm not going to spend forever on this because I could spend a lot of time complaining about the things I don't like here. It's not the end of the world, but most of the stuff here I don't think looks very good. I also don't think it looks very well suited or doesn't fit into the character of Borderlands. This feels to me quite a lot influenced by Cyberpunk. I think they've been playing some Cyberpunk and they've liked the look of certain things on there. Tried to imitate some of it and it hasn't really worked out. And it, like I say, it doesn't really seem to fit very well. You've got the rarity system now on the guns, which is not only indicated by green, but we now have an extra visual asset, which again is another asset on the screen we don't need. So you've got, you know, 1 triangle, 2 triangle, 3 triangle, 4 triangle as the general system, helping to show the rarity. Then you've got little icons with the burns. I feel like a lot of this is just not really conveying information very well, so that's a bit concerning. And then the art style of a lot of this, once we get into like the smaller icons and stuff, the more traditional stuff, that all looks fine. And the actual overlay when you're hovering over the gun, it's showing the information. There's a lot to take in there, but that's pretty standard. Probably could just be smaller. I don't know if you need it to be quite as large as that, but that's fine. Here we're going through the gun types that are available in the game, and they don't explain this well because they say any parts from the game come from all of these manufacturers, and we now proceed to look at 8 manufacturers. So we have Jacobs, Vladoff, Tedior, Torg, Maliwan, and then these 3 new ones we have Order, Ripper, and then Daedalus. But then you'll see as we go into the next section where they're actually showing the gun manufacturing component crossover that we now have in the game. There's actually 3 parts manufacturers as well where they don't mention here, which is Hyperion, Atlas, and COV. So you'll see in a minute he chucks this gun together with a Hyperion part. That's why that doesn't make sense, because that would make it a 9th part, but it's just because there's 3 manufacturers that do parts only. At the moment, maybe there'll be more with those in DLC, maybe they'll come into the game in more over time, maybe they've just pulled it back, but we will see. So this area here is the location that I was indicating could be part of an internal kind of biome or realm in the game, whatever you want to think of it as, the 4th zone maybe. Quite a different kind of look and vibe in this area, and I love this kind of this look of kind of, it's not the rock, but it's like almost like the rock organically is kind of becoming a structure, or was. So I don't know if this is, you know, a destroyed world kind of below the area, or whether it's actually not, this isn't underground, maybe it's actually just, you know, an aridy like area that's out of the way as well. Don't know, but its style looks quite specifically different from pretty much anything else we've seen, so that's why I think there's something a bit special with this zone. And so they talk here about how the new system with all the changeover with the guns allows for a lot of new variety. I really hope that's the case, because with each of the weapons manufacturers, they've put them each in kind of more of a narrow line this time in terms of their capabilities and what they're sort of designed to do. So the Order guns could be charged up, the Rippers are fully auto, for example. Which to me, I'd prefer to have those different types of interaction throughout all of the gun manufacturers. But I guess that will happen with the crossover anyway, so I'm not sure if it's just sort of kicking the can down the road or what, but you know, technically you could get all sorts of combinations. It doesn't really mean anything at this point, because you need to see how it works in practice and how broad that system actually is. But it's promising that they've got a nice variety of manufacturers, and hopefully we've got some good crossover. There's also other things with the guns I don't think they've mentioned here, like the Rainbow Burn and maybe the Daedalus Burn, as just a couple of things that might also be in the mix. Back to some more of the menu stuff here. So enhancements now replace artifacts. And they talk a bit about how the enhancements really can add a lot to the gun, so you could really beef up something that was not so special, but, you know, say you got a green or a blue and you were still waiting for a bit of a stronger gun. The enhancements are going to help push that up and give you some real nice bonuses to that. And then obviously when you've got a good gun with the enhancement, you're going to get all those extra bonuses on top of that. So there could be some very good combinations and build things that will happen within that. And then you can see it here, they don't mention in this specific run through, but you've got this airstrike bit here, and I think that that is an enhancement, is a bonus that is applied to, I think they called it loyalties. So I think if this is a Ripper component, so I think if you have 3 things equipped that were Ripper, so you had this and then a couple of guns, you would then get this effect added to those using those guns. So if you're using, you know, the Ripper assault rifle and shooting, occasionally you're going to get this airstrike effect where it's going to add some like an extra volley of shots, or something's going to drop from the sky or something like that. So that's pretty cool. Another way that we're going to be able to really, you know, beef everything up and add to all the build crafting. This is the Tibetan area we've seen a number of times, but from a slightly different angle this time, and much closer than we've seen that. And we've got the ship spawning in, bunch of ads. And he just talks a little bit more about the enhancements there and how they will just be pushing everything just to be a lot more fun and a lot more powerful. We touched on this slightly before, but this is talking about how they've sorted their rarities out a lot more now, so the drop rate should be good. Let's get back to the gameplay. So now they start to talk about ordnance, which is a new mechanic in the game. And this is a gear slot for grenades and heavy weapons. So ordnance is now going to be on a cooldown rather than a pickup. So I don't know why they've gone in this direction. It seems absolutely counter Borderlands minded in my opinion. I've always enjoyed the freedom that you can pick whatever you want. You could have 4 rocket launchers if you want normally, but now you're just going to be stuck with 1. And that's a bit of a shame. I hope that there's some sort of twist or something that's really specific about ordnance that makes it work well as an ability, but really I still think this should have been, you know, have another ability that's doing something very, very powerful like this, and have the players have the freedom to still select whatever guns they want to use however they want to use them. Really don't like this idea, but that's what we got. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe there's going to be something cool about it. They make us a point about it not taking up a gun slot, and it's like, I mean, it was fine. Like, you could have it in a gun slot if you wanted, but the thing was, you didn't have to have that kind of gun. You could have had 3 assault rifles and 1 shotgun, 4 shotguns, 4 pistols. You could have any combination you want, so it wasn't taking up a slot on the basis we have 4 slots. My mind was more thinking that I would have liked them to make it so we could have had more slots on our character anyway. So it would have been more like Doom or something like that, where our weapons wheel, as it were, instead of being just a 4 equipped one, we could have had, you know, 6, 8. Like, I don't see why that would have been a problem. And then, hey, like, you could have had 2 rocket launchers, so it would have been even better. And they say here about no more saving the big guns for the boss fights. They don't even know their own game. They haven't played Borderlands if they think that they are saving a rocket launcher or something like that specifically for a boss. No Borderlands game has ever singled out having to have a heavy machine gun or a rocket launcher as a boss killing gun. Half the time, the most powerful guns in Borderlands games are SMGs or pistols or something like that. It's just insane how unaware people making their game even seem to be about their own thing. Like, also the fact that this is now the grenade slot as well, so grenades, rockets, whatever is all in one thing. So we used to be able to throw grenades. I could get out 4 rocket launchers and spam all of them out, but you're saying now I don't get grenades and I only can only have 1 rocket launcher. Now I can put out the most damage. What are you talking about? Man's crazy. And now we're jumping into skill trees a bit more. And they talk about how, at least in the base of this so far, each hunter has 3 action skills, and then you have trees associated with that, which you're then going to be sending, you know, sending whatever points you want into to be able to do different builds and all the rest of it. Before we go any further, I'm going to bring up this point again. Vex was created to be a witch, according to them. So this was a character that must have been created for Wonderlands and not Borderlands. If it was made for Borderlands, what are you doing? They also talk about specifically catering their characters for games specifically, like to tailor them specifically so they're exactly what they want. So they've dragged across a character from Wonderlands, and the whole thing of that is that they're like, every witch has to have her cat. And this is the cat Trouble, which is one of your specters, which is named after one of their employees' cats, which is actually called Trouble, that's pretty cute and pretty fun. But at the same time, you know, they also, you know, that's counter to the whole, it's made specifically for one thing or other. Like, if this skill down here doesn't give you a second cat and it's called Double Trouble, I'm going to be very sad. Definitely feels like you're missing a trick if you don't have that. So again, with all of this stuff, it feels very un-Borderlands. I don't really like the look of it. The artworks they've got for all of these icons, I don't like the style of these. These look very auto-generated. They don't really look like good bits of artwork. Like, they don't look clever in their complexity or interesting in their lack of it. They just look very, very just kind of meh. Just not really very inspired, just kind of thrown together without much sort of life to them or anything. The art style itself just doesn't really feel Borderlands or feel like it fits. Like, so much of the UX UI is just painful, absolutely painful. Worst components of the game we see so far, for sure. So it's quite interesting. So part of Vex's kit, when she changes guns, it changes the burn type of what her equipped skill is doing. So Trouble here is cycling through the different burn types according to what gun Vex has out from moment to moment. There's definitely some interesting stuff that could happen with that. That definitely makes for more choice in terms of your builds and your different kind of setups, your loadouts, in terms of how you're using your equipment and your skills at any moment. And they make a point, you can pet the cat. Oh, that's beautiful. I want to pet the other thing. That other thing, ugly. He cool. Again, in this section, you just sort of see a lot more going on. You can see how all the overlaying components on the screen are just muddying things up. Just making it very hard to see between the reticle and the different bars. Just garish. The person playing this, you can see absolutely struggling to move their camera. Just fighting to just actually move around in the game is not a good look. Enemies look fun though, jumping around all over the place. Just shooting Amara's cat there, or whatever it is. Fight for the Life is back. Or the Rev kit, which is now highlighting down in the bottom left. So instead of picking up health now, because the red icons that we see, or the red drops, sorry, that we see, appear to be this Ordinite material that is now in the game. So we have our Rev kit, which I guess is Revive kit. So I guess this is a Revive kit. But so this is going to be able to give yourself some healing on the fly rather than have to find it. And I think they've talked about ways that that's going to be able to be modifiable as well. So you'll have maybe buffs attached to that or something else. how much the camera's being fought with. You can't even turn around. And so here they're just saying about how they've added Moxie's big encore machine, which means you can rerun missions and bosses. And again, this game, because of how the Vault Hunters have spread out through the galaxies, there's only certain characters carrying into this game because the others are exploring different areas of the galaxy looking for Lilith. I mean, for Moxie to be in the game again, it's just totally unneeded. I'm not going to have another big rant on that, but it's good that they have the replayability built into the game now rather than having to save and quit. I hope that that's been done in a good way, that it feels fluid and it's not affecting our way of getting loot or anything else, but we will have to wait and see how it's implemented. Here again, so this is definitely the same sort of architecture and what I consider to be maybe this like underground zone, and you can see here that we are definitely more underground, and we've got this boss coming down here, which albeit it looks very over the top and sort of, I don't know, organic in a sense. It looks sort of almost like a wildlife. You can see that we do have just this is some sort of really elaborate ripper or whatever, where you've got a bandit down here that's sort of fixed into and part of this machine. Nice variety of attacks and stuff here. This really reminds me of the secret Tina boss in Wonderlands. Very, very similar arena size and style of hectic projectiles. And then we've already seen that little blast of clips before. So I guess that's it. That gives us a bit of an idea of what the gameplay is going to be like. Lots and lots of concerns, but we're still several months away from the game's release, so hopefully a lot of these things will be addressed. And really we need more clarity on a lot of these things anyway. They need to be showing off more of the game and specifically telling us more about what the Agile content will be. But yeah, I guess for now, please do let me know what you've thought about what we've seen so far. What's the things that you're most bothered about? What's the things you're not liking in Borderlands 4? And what's the things you're really excited to see and can't wait to get your hands on it for? But hit up the comments down below, and I'll catch you next time, Vault Heads. Take it easy. Peace out.
From the other side, what I need to show you is my obligation. How much longer can you hide? You can try and push away.